Welcome to The Denial Machine. Episode 1, The Pattern.
Sarah Chen's alarm buzzed at 6:15, the same time it had every weekday morning for the past 12 years. She reached across the empty side of her queen bed, a space that had been vacant for 3 years now, and silenced the phone with practiced efficiency. Through her Chicago apartment's thin walls, she could hear her 14-year-old daughter Jamie already moving around, getting ready for school. The morning routine was sacred. Coffee first. Black, no sugar. Check emails while the caffeine worked its magic. Wake Jamie if she wasn't already up. Drive her to Lincoln Park High. Then navigate the 40-minute commute to Metropolitan Insurance Corporation's gleaming downtown headquarters. Sarah had perfected this routine because routine meant control, and control meant she could handle anything the day threw at her. As a senior claims adjuster, she reviewed between 30 and 50 insurance claims daily, making decisions that affected real people's lives. It was work that mattered, work that helped people when they needed it most, or so she had always believed. "Mom, you're going to be late if you don't leave in 10 minutes, Jamie called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that particular teenage tone that managed to be both helpful and slightly condescending. "Since when do you watch the clock for me?" Sarah replied, pulling on her standard issue business attire. Navy blazer, white blouse, sensible shoes. The uniform of corporate respectability. "Since you started spacing out more often. You okay lately? You seem..." Jamie paused in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. Distracted, Sarah looked at her daughter. Really looked. When had Jamie gotten so perceptive? At 14, she was already showing the keen intelligence that Sarah hoped would take her far beyond the compromises and cubicles that had defined her mother's life. "I'm fine, honey. Just busy season at work. You know how it gets." Jamie nodded, but Sarah caught the skeptical look in her eyes. Her daughter was too smart to buy easy explanations anymore. The drive to MetLife's headquarters took Sarah through the heart of Chicago's financial district. 43 floors of glass and steel reaching toward Lake Michigan, housing over 3,000 employees. Sarah had walked through those marble-floored lobbies countless times, taken the elevators to the 27th floor where claims processing lived in its maze of cubicles and conference rooms. But this morning felt different somehow. Maybe it was Jamie's observation about her being distracted. Maybe it was the way the autumn light hit the building's facade, making it look less like a beacon of corporate stability and more like a fortress keeping secrets. Sarah badged into the building at 8:37, took the elevator to 27, and settled into her cubicle. Her workstation was meticulously organized. Color-coded files, dual monitors arranged for maximum efficiency, a small framed photo of Jamie from last year's school play. Everything in its place. Her supervisor, Marcus Rivera, was already at his desk across the department floor. Marcus was 42, had been with MetLife for 15 years, and possessed the weary look of a man who had climbed as high as he ever would in the corporate hierarchy. He was fair, competent, and had always supported Sarah's work. She trusted him as much as she trusted anyone in this business. Sarah opened her queue for the day, 51 claims awaiting review. She started with what looked like routine cases: a fender bender in Naperville, water damage from a burst pipe in Evanston, a slip and fall at a grocery store in the Loop. Standard stuff that she could process efficiently, leaving time for the more complex cases that required deeper investigation. The fourth file in her queue made her pause. Dorothy Martinez, age 72, widowed, residing at 3247 South Ashland Avenue. Diagnosis: stage 2 breast cancer. Treatment: chemotherapy and radiation recommended by Dr. Patricia Hoffman at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Claim amount: $47,000 for initial treatment course. Status: denied. Reason code: treatment deemed experimental and not medically necessary per policy guidelines. Section 14.7-C. Sarah frowned at her screen. She had reviewed thousands of cancer treatment claims over the years. Chemotherapy and radiation for stage 2 breast cancer was about as standard as medical treatment got. There was nothing experimental about it. She pulled up the policy guidelines referenced in the denial. Section 14.7-C covered experimental treatments, defined as therapies not widely accepted in the medical community or lacking sufficient clinical evidence of effectiveness. The section was typically applied to cutting-edge immunotherapies or novel surgical procedures, not to treatments that had been the gold standard for decades. Someone had made a mistake. It happened occasionally. Wrong reason code selected from the drop-down menu, misread medical records, simple human error. Sarah began the process to reverse the denial, but as she typed, something nagged at her. The language in the denial letter was unusually specific. Not the standard template language that adjusters typically used, but carefully crafted sentences that sounded authoritative while being technically meaningless. Based on comprehensive medical review and actuarial analysis, the requested treatment protocol falls outside established care parameters for the patient's demographic profile and condition severity index. Sarah had been writing denial letters for 12 years. She knew every template, every standard phrase, every piece of corporate speak they used to cushion the blow of bad news. This wasn't standard language. This was something else. She pulled up the denial letter template database and searched for similar phrases. Nothing matched. She tried broader searches, looking for key terms like, quote, demographic profile and condition severity index. Still nothing. Curious now, Sarah opened her general claims queue and began searching for other recent denials. She filtered by reason code 14.7-C, looking for cases where treatments had been deemed experimental. What she found made her stomach drop. 17 denials in the past month alone, all using identical language, all targeting different demographics: elderly patients, low-income families, minorities from specific zip codes. All for treatments that were anything but experimental. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she pulled up case after case. An 80-year-old man denied dialysis. A young mother denied surgery for a brain tumor. A veteran denied physical therapy for combat injuries. Every single denial letter contained the same sophisticated language she had seen in Dorothy Martinez's file, the same language that didn't exist in any of MetLife's official templates. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. "Forgot my lunch money. Can you Venmo me $10? Sarah stared at the message, then at her computer screen filled with denied claims, then back at her phone. Somehow, her daughter's simple request for lunch money seemed to exist in a different universe from the systematic pattern of denials she was uncovering. She Venmoed Jamie the money, then returned to her investigation. By lunchtime, Sarah had identified 23 denials using the non-standard language, all within the past 6 weeks, all for legitimate medical treatments. She tried to calculate the total dollar amount of the denied claims, but kept losing track of the numbers. It was well into the hundreds of thousands, possibly more. She needed to understand where this language was coming from. Sarah pulled up MetLife's internal directory and searched for anyone in legal or compliance who might have created new denial templates. She found contact information for 3 different departments that might be involved. But before she could make any calls, Marcus Rivera appeared at her cubicle. "Sarah, how's your day going? Getting through the queue okay?" Marcus's tone was casual, but something in his posture seemed tense. He was standing closer to her monitors than he normally would, and his eyes kept flicking to her screen. "Fine, Marcus. Actually, I had a question about some of the denial letters I've been seeing. There's some language I don't recognize, and I wanted to make sure I understood the new templates." "New templates?" Marcus's voice was carefully neutral. "Yeah, some specific phrasing about demographic profiles and actuarial analysis. It's showing up in a bunch of denials, but I can't find it in the standard template database." Marcus was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "Sarah, you know how it is with corporate communications. Legal and compliance are always updating language, trying to make everything more precise. I'm sure it's just new guidance that hasn't been widely distributed yet. But shouldn't I have access to current templates? I mean, if I'm supposed to be using this language..." "Listen," Marcus interrupted, glancing around the department. "Why don't you focus on processing your current queue for now? If you have questions about specific language, we can address those in our one-on-one next week." There was something in Marcus's tone that Sarah had never heard before. Not exactly warning, but close to it. He was telling her to drop the subject, and they both knew it. "Sure, Marcus. No problem." He nodded and walked away, but Sarah noticed he took a route that let him glance back at her workstation twice before disappearing into his office. Sarah spent the rest of the afternoon processing routine claims, but her mind kept returning to the pattern she had discovered. 23 cases of identical language that didn't exist in official templates. Language sophisticated enough to sound medical and authoritative, but vague enough to justify denying almost any treatment. Language that was being applied systematically to specific demographics. When 5:30 arrived, Sarah packed up her desk with unusual care, making sure her computer was completely logged out and her files were secured. As she waited for the elevator, she found herself looking around the 27th floor with new eyes. How many people knew about the non-standard denial language? Was she the only one who had noticed the pattern, or were others simply choosing not to see it? The elevator arrived, and as Sarah stepped in, she caught sight of Marcus Rivera through his office window. He was on the phone, and from his body language, hunched forward, hand pressed to his forehead, it wasn't a casual conversation. During the drive home, Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe there was a simple explanation that would make her feel foolish for raising concerns. Maybe the language was part of a new initiative that she simply hadn't been briefed on yet. But even as she tried to rationalize what she had seen, a deeper part of her mind was running different calculations. 23 cases in 6 weeks. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in denied claims. Elderly patients, poor families, vulnerable populations. People like Dorothy Martinez, sitting at home with cancer, wondering why her insurance company had abandoned her. Jamie was already home when Sarah walked through the apartment door, sprawled on the couch with homework scattered around her. "Hey, Mom, how was work?" "Fine," Sarah replied automatically, then caught herself. "Actually, it was interesting. I'm working on something that might help a lot of people." Jamie looked up from her math homework. "That's cool. Like, what kind of help?" Sarah hesitated. "How do you explain corporate malfeasance to a 14-year-old? How do you describe the moment when you realize that the company you've served faithfully for 12 years might be systematically harming the people it's supposed to protect, just making sure people get the medical coverage they've paid for? Making sure the system works the way it's supposed to. That sounds important." "Yeah," Sarah said quietly. "I think it might be very important." That night, after Jamie went to bed, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with her laptop. She couldn't access MetLife systems from home, but she could research the treatments that had been denied. She pulled up medical journals, treatment protocols from major hospitals, insurance industry standards. Every single treatment that had been denied using the mysterious language was not only legitimate, it was considered standard of care. In many cases, delaying or denying these treatments could result in permanent disability or death. Sarah stared at her laptop screen until the letters began to blur. 23 cases was just what she had found in one afternoon of casual searching. How many more were there? How long had this been going on? How many Dorothy Martinezes were sitting in their homes tonight, wondering if they were going to die because MetLife had decided their lives weren't worth the cost? She closed the laptop and sat in the darkness of her kitchen, listening to the sounds of the city beyond her windows. Somewhere out there, Marcus Rivera was probably lying awake too, knowing that his star adjuster had started asking dangerous questions. And somewhere in MetLife's corporate headquarters, in offices much fancier than the 27th floor, other people were making decisions that would determine whether Sarah Chen's career would survive her inconvenient curiosity. Sarah made herself a cup of tea and returned to her laptop. She created a new folder on her personal drive and labeled it Medical Reviews. Then she began documenting everything she had discovered that day: claim numbers, denial language, patient demographics, treatment types. She worked until nearly 2 in the morning, building a careful record of what she had found. Tomorrow she would try to access more files, search for additional patterns, understand the scope of what she was uncovering. But tonight, for the first time in 12 years of working at Metropolitan Insurance Corporation, Sarah Chen felt like she was finally doing her job the way it was meant to be done. She was protecting people from a system that had forgotten they were more than numbers on a spreadsheet. The question was whether the system would let her continue. Thanks for listening to Part 1 of The Denial Machine. Find Part 2 in the description below.